你的功夫很不错，看来你有一段很不一样的过去。
你根本就没有资格做我的仇人。这个事情，我讲这个人，永远不是你们。
So how excited were you for this movie?
Kind of excited after seeing that trailer, because trailers could really pull people in. Hey, we have Tony Jaa back in a starring role doing martial arts.
Yes.
Doing some punching, some kicking, and what is he known for? The elbows and the knees. And that trailer cuts things together so well that you think he's going to kick everybody's ass. So I was trying to temper my expectations, but I was pretty excited because this came out of nowhere. Literally came out of nowhere. It just kind of dropped that this was going to be on YouQ, another Chinese streaming app, but picked up by WellGo. So us US people are able to watch it.
Yeah. Well, this is a case of the Bangkok dog again, because I also did not know what this was. It's kind of was a blip that just appeared on my radar. It's like, oh, Tony Jaa. Why not? Why not check it out? And yeah, like that trailer made it seem like, okay, there'll be some of the return to form, what you expect when you think Tony Jaa, but I gotta try not to pull the age card. The dude's in his late 40s now, so you're not gonna expect him to do all the crazy shit in there. So, but even with that in mind, I was thinking, okay, is it going to at least have some sort of semblance to what we have, expected of his, caliber of action? And it's kind of there. It's kind of there. It's just, it's just a little bit muted. And then the rest of the movie. And then there's the rest of the film. So
sure.
All right. So let's talk about the story, because I kind of want to get that out of the way, because that also is one of the few things I vaguely remember about the film.
Striking Rescue.
Striking Rescue. What do you think
we're talking about?
Oh, yeah. Oh, wow. We didn't name drop at all yet.
Striking Rescue, Tony Jaa's new martial arts movie that's coming from mainland China. Some people might not realize this. Yeah. He's been working in some mainland Chinese films, mainly the Detective Chinatown series. The last one he did was part 3. And then he did Expendables 4 before that. He's kind of been bouncing around. He hasn't done like a big martial arts movie maybe since like Triple Threat? Maybe Jiu-Jitsu, but I don't know if I would count that. But
yeah, he was in Jiu-Jitsu, all right. He was in it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, anyways, Striking Rescue. It's a story of... Well, I mean, it literally tells you within the first 5 seconds of the movie opening that Tony Jaa's family, his wife and daughter, have been killed, and he is on a revenge to get back at the person responsible. And that person responsible, he thinks is responsible, has a daughter who is also going to be tag teaming along with the main character, because fast forward a tiny bit in the movie, it's no longer about Tony Jaa trying to get revenge against that family. It's more like him protecting the daughter and from another entity or another villain that's like part of this story.
Because he reluctantly teams up with the daughter, he starts to have feelings like, well, should he really go and get revenge against her father, played by Philip Kung, who may or may not be responsible for the death of his family. So there's supposed to be that internal struggle of him helping out this little girl because he lost his daughter, so he, kind of feels sentimental about this little girl that he's helping. And then so does he get revenge on the father, thus messing up his relationship with this little girl who's been tagging along with him the whole movie? So here's something that is kind of weird.
Oh, yeah.
Tony Jaa is speaking English this whole movie to all Mandarin speakers, and you have to just assume that he understands what they're saying, and he probably doesn't.
Yeah, but you don't see the translator just like standing off on the sidelines, just like translating every character's dialogue from English from poor English to Chinese. Yeah, you just have to suspend your disbelief.
Yeah, it's a little weird. I mean, they could have thrown in a line because he does marry a Chinese woman. They have a daughter together who tragically passed in the movie. So he could have said something like, "Well, I understand, but I just can't speak it." You know, like cover up that minor detail. Yeah. But unfortunately, Tony Jaa's English is broken English. Mm-hmm. So you're really trying to understand what he's saying.
Yeah.
I'm just a lost family.
Then on top of that, you're reading the subtitles of the Mandarin as well. So it's kind of jarring to go back and forth between the languages being spoken.
Yeah, like when you read lines of dialogue from some extra characters in the movie saying, "Whoever killed this fuck man, get the money." It's like, well, I mean, I'm not faulting anyone for not knowing the English, but at the same time, there's the little girl character, played by Chen Duoyi. You hear a couple lines of dialogue from her, and it's English, and it's like, oh, she sounds like she's fluent in English. They should have cross-referenced the English dialogue with the child, right? Because they make sure it made sense.
I think that would have been good for their character bonding if they were kind of speaking English together, because there are moments where she's translating for him and it feels like, okay, that makes sense for them to get closer, but then they just kind of abandon it. He's just the one speaking English, and it's not good in delivery, so you just kind of have to get through it with him, because that's not what this movie is about. This movie's not really about the story. It's not really about any of these characters. This is about putting our old pal Tony Jaa back in action.
我相信你会需要我的，我们可以合作。
In terms of the action spotlight, he does share a lot of screen time with this performer, Hong Jun-jia, who is kind of also, well, he is a protector for the family. And
he's their bodyguard.
He's a bodyguard trying to protect the little one and trying to say, come to her rescue, right? And obviously with everything we talked about with the moles and everything, there becomes a little bit of uncertainty, like, oh, who should she trust? Like, maybe he's in on it, and we don't know. But because Hong Jianjia is, a bit younger, and he definitely shows some athletic ability. He does share, I'd say, like equal amount of time with Tony Jaa, if not more. In a way, I remember him fighting a lot, especially against like this a female antagonistic character played by Sherry Wang Wei Ching.
Wang Wei Ching, yes.
Wang Wei Ching, yes. She plays a comically evil sickle wielding lady, and all her thing is, I need to laugh, like cackle maniacally. And swing my sickles around.
She's crazy Chinese woman. If you've seen these low budget mainland direct to web movies, they like to put in these like weird, outlandish, over the top like antagonists played by these like tiny women or these skinny women, and that's just what she is. That's her character. She's crazy. She's bloodthirsty, and surprisingly, she's not bad either. She looks sloppier when compared to Tony Jaa and Hong Jianjia, but the way they made the choreography around her, she actually has like one of the better fights with Tony Jaa, actually.
Yeah. Well, so Tony Jaa in this film, he's a little bit more down to earth in that he's not invincible. Not to say that he was invincible in his early works, but because he was so athletic and so agile and just delivered and took a lot of brutality, it's just very violent and very like excessive choreography going on. Tony Jaa does deliver some of it here, but it's a little bit more toned down. for sure. I think one thing I took away from this whole movie was that like I wasn't as I think I wasn't as interested in the film from a fight standpoint, but I thought some of the stunt work was pretty nice.
Oh yeah,
like,
yeah. So just to before we go into the stunt stuff, like I want to say like the fighting in this film, I think considering Tony Jaa's getting older, so he, like you mentioned, he can't really do he can't be like he was when he first burst onto the scene.
Of course,
he can't. He's getting older, so I understand it, and I appreciate a lot of the choreography here because, if someone's going to give them something to do, like, mainland China, they're churning out these martial arts films. And like, this is pretty decent. In preparation for this review, I listened to our Tom Young Gun 2 episode, and just rethinking about that, I remembered like just hating everything that they did with him in that movie. And in here, this is Tony Jaa actually doing traditional martial arts choreography. He has encounters with multiple people. Yes, some of them are not as good as others, but there are some decent moments. And I would, like, at the end of the day, I was like, oh, you know what? Actually, this is not bad. This is actually pretty good at times. As a whole, like, it's like, some fights you're just like, like, that was, not as good. But, the movie smartly paces the action after giving us like enough. Yeah, like after giving us like, kind of enough dialogue, like you kind of get bored of what they're talking about. Action set piece, like decent action set piece. People like Tony Jaa coming in and hitting people with a car. It's like, oh man, that's reminiscent of Thai stunts. Like that's pretty good. You get him doing the double knees, just spin kicking or downward kicking stuntmen, like the leg locking onto the neck. It's very reminiscent. Yes, it's never going to be the same, but you kind of have nostalgia for it, and it looks decent here. So I was pretty happy overall with it.
Yeah. Well, I mean, because at least this action was slightly elevated from like at least being above average. It kind of kept me awake when the story was kind of not doing the job for me. I mean, because I found the movie really by the numbers in terms of story, or rather, like, okay, I'm just literally waiting for the next thing, which I've already predicted is going to happen, to happen. So at least we get plenty of action in the film. And I don't know, if this is the direction that mainland China, mainland Chinese films is going in, I don't necessarily mind it. Especially like in the way that they kind of highlight, an older actor, or aging actor, still looks good. And even Xing Yu, who's who plays one of the main villains in the movie, when he first gets introduced, I was like, okay, maybe they're gonna give him the Tony Jaa treatment. But like, no, that dude still still has a lot of physical capabilities, and I was actually kind of surprised, but really surprised and kind of annoyed that Xing Yu just demolishing everybody. Like, I was like, what the fuck? Like, it's like, again, I always say this, but I like to see how our main characters triumph, right, from the underdog, and what did they adopt to win. And I never understood. This is one of those examples where I'm like, that's kind of a letdown. It just happens in my
he just wins because he eventually gets a metal bat, and then he can't even win with the metal bat. So he wins because story needs him to win, and that's kind of it. You're right. There is no moment where Tony Jaa remembers some sort of move or gets raged up because maybe somebody gets killed or hurt, and so he defeats the villain. No, he just kind of defeats the villain, and that's, I mean, I guess that's okay. I think why I was disappointed is because the best fights and the action, in my opinion, were actually in the beginning and in the middle of the movie, and the ending isn't as strong. Like him fighting Xing Yu, it's not bad, but I actually prefer when he fights like the other antagonists, like Wang Wei Qing, for example.
Yeah. I mean, well, even the way that they quote unquote defeat her is like, what? That's how they defeat her? Like
it's like a left field. Yeah.
I kind of wish it was a little bit more, had more of an impact. It's like, oh, that's an exclamation mark to end this conflict. But nah, it's kind of like a little, I wouldn't say it's dry fart. It sounds like we're giving pretty high praises to the movie for the most part. But I don't know. I did come out of this like I kind of felt a little lukewarm. It's it's good. It's okay. I think I didn't come out of it thinking like, wow, this is great. Like this is exactly what I wanted. Some things were a little bit. I think like the overall pacing of the film was a little bit too slow for me. I thought like for a story that. Even though yes, they're trying to put some like twists and turns in there. I felt like the movie, because it was kind of predictable. I really was just waiting for the movie to just move on. Like I get it, come on, let's just move on. But like, and yes, there's plenty of action that's interspliced between everything. But I don't know. I still was kind of distracted by the fact that the rest of the film did not work as well for me. So. I don't know. I guess I'm a little bit harsher on this one.
Sure. Yeah. No. You know what it is? Like we haven't had a good Tony Jaa movie in a while. I think because my expectation, I was excited after seeing the trailer, but I realized like, okay, well, you can do a lot with a trailer. So I really had to lower the bar, really lower my expectations. And when I saw this, watching this a few times, I realized like, you know what? This is a good upward trajectory for him. I think what needs to happen is he needs to get with a better mainland Chinese director.
Yes.
He needs to pair with Chin Peng Fei, who does Fight Against Evil, like Blade of Fury. Like he needs to pair up with him, like Mo Xie, Ashton Shen, like all these guys now who are now leading mainland Chinese movie action, and just get in like a really, really solid action film and fight all the the top tier guys now. And I think that's what's going to be like, oh wow, yeah, now Tony Jaa's really back.
Yeah, I'd love to see that. I had this thought the other day that like one great thing about like Donnie Yen coming into the scene, like in like the late 2000s, like with Ip Man, was like not, that's a very rare occurrence, right? Like someone who's old, like later in their career, suddenly getting like huge spike in their ability. But I'm like, oh, but playing Ip Man, playing Wing Chun, a dude who does Wing Chun, it's like that's a very non-athletic looking martial art, but he also like strikes the poses and does it really well. But Tony Jaa, like his style has always been like showing off how extremely athletic he is.
Well, he's got that's flying knees, like jumping into his adversaries. So
yeah.
I mean,
exactly that.
I think he could still pull it off. There's glimmers of that going on here with the opening fight. He's doing the knees, he's doing the elbows. You can see how they're editing around him sometimes, because like anytime you don't see his face, I'm just assuming that's probably maybe a stunt double or someone who can maybe do something a little more literally elevating than he can at this point.
Yeah.
But I'm fine with it, like, because there are other times where it's clearly him. That he'll go into a slow motion kick, it'll just clip on the guy's neck, and then his face will pop up, and you'll be like, yes, that's Tony Jaa. That's what I remember. So I hope that maybe as he gets older, they realize how to work around his, declining ability, but still make him look ferocious and still make him a presence in martial arts cinema.
All right, just as long as, because I know how much he idolizes Jackie. So as long as he doesn't go the Jackie route and do what was the new one, the one that just came out, Kung Fu Panda Express. I don't know. Wait, what is the movie called? Panda Plan.
Panda Plan. No, I thought you were gonna say like as long as Tony Jaa doesn't de-age himself.
Oh, like a legend? Yeah.
Yeah, and start maybe Oh my god, maybe it would be like Tony Jaa time travel, and he time travels back to like
my
Bak
God.
1, and he teams up with a de-aged Tony Jaa version of himself.
Oh, I hate it.
let's go, kick some people in the face, elbow
this
people on the
already.
top of the head.